Hey nerds, we are going to do our review and breakdown of Star Wars Skeleton Crew Episode 7, starting now. Welcome back to the Nerd Social. I am Colin.
And I'm David.
Episode 7's title is We're Gonna Be in So Much Trouble. It is written by Christopher Ford and John Watts, and it's directed by Issac Chung. That name might be familiar to some folks. He was the director of the movie Minari and last year's Twisters, and he also directed one episode of The Mandalorian Season 3. Spoiler-free logline of this episode is, our heroes have never felt further from home. David, what are your spoiler-free thoughts about this latest episode of Skeleton Crew?
I liked it, and especially after the past 3 episodes were total drag on. This one gets straight to the action and back to the main story. It's fast-paced at a reasonable speed, and I enjoyed it a lot, even though we see our heroes and also John Underwood are going to the same direction. We get more answers revealed, especially about John Underwood and more about Ad.
Yeah, I agree. The story moved very quickly in this episode. It felt very much like the episodes from the first 3 episodes, where it just kept to the point and it kept moving along, and it really felt good in terms of the pace. How it ended, I just knew that was the part where they're going to end it. I just predicted that was going to be the case. Also, I really appreciated that the parents played a more active role in this episode. I'm not going to spoil it here as to what they did, but instead of feeling hopeless, they were at least trying to get their kids back. Jod really in this episode becomes more and more of a scoundrel, and we'll talk about that as well. He reminds me of another character that Jude Law portrayed, Yon-Rogg, who you remember in the movie Captain Marvel. Very similar vibes with that character. There's also some shocking deaths, which makes the show more adult than it should be. I still view it straddled between kids show and adult. I think that it has grown more adult over the last couple of episodes, and to have this type of consistent writing throughout these episodes, Christopher Ford and John Watts really get it. Out of all the Star Wars shows, it's probably gonna really creep up there right behind Andor. I think Andor is still number 1, but Skeleton Crew is, depending on what happens with the final episode, may have surpassed Ahsoka for me, but we shall see. Having said all that, David, what are you going to give your rating for this episode?
I give it an 8, which is a road trip, and because like I said, it's fast-paced at a reasonable speed, and we get a lot of answers that's been dreading for a lot. But the only thing is how they ended the episode makes me want to, come on, show the episode already.
And I also will give this an 8 as well, which is a road trip. I appreciate when people take swings. And there were some swings that were really cool with the deaths and also the scoundrel nature of Jod, which was overall very effective. And also, at the same time, we've seen some of the Disney Plus properties, and as I mentioned, Acolyte, or even Agatha All Along, or even some of the other shows that we've done, like Mandalorian. They all have a very big high in the middle, episodes 4 and 5, and that was pretty evident here too, but they never ever been able to stick the landing. And I think that hopefully with the final episode coming up, that it will stick the landing. Any other thoughts before we get into spoiler territory?
Let's dive in.
Okay, so if you enjoy our discussion about Star Wars Skeleton Crew and other content we put out there, please like, share, subscribe for more. We really appreciate your support and our followers that are on all of our social media platforms. So without further ado, spoilers ahead for Star Wars Skeleton Crew Episode 7. Okay. We start off with the parents, like I said in the spoiler-free part, that they're trying to do anything to get their kids back. And the only way that they can do that is to send a message, because they can't really break through the barrier. It was a nice coming together of all the parents, KB, Neil, Wim, and Fern's parents working to put together a beacon so that they can communicate with their children. And so at that time, they were getting stunned by all the droids that say that they're in violation. It doesn't seem as though there were any consequences as to what they're doing, which brings up the question for me as to what are consequences, or do they think that there's something going on that they need their help with? David, maybe you could shed some light on it.
The thing is that Ad-An is one of 9 planets hidden from the Republic, and they were literally sheltered outside the galaxy. And we don't know who the supervisor is, and we don't know why should they not contact the outside. Is this something that the supervisor knows about, or does the supervisor know what's happening outside that no one in the planet knows about? So we don't know what punishment is there yet. But the thing is that even the parents of the kids are wondering, why is it so important to be hidden?
Exactly. And while this is happening, the pirate ship had already found the coordinates to Ad-An. The pirate ship has arrived on Ad-An. And the crew being promised by Jod that there's going to be wealth, there's going to be riches, and them just following through on it. Although Brutus is still antagonizing Jod, trying to get rid of him. This is where I think that they made a tackle error, but of course it's part of the show that Jod stays alive. I just don't understand as to why Brutus just did not press the button to kill him, or even he himself doing it. Now, it may be because, yes, he is the main character of the story, so you can't really kill him, but from a reality's point of view, why are you still keeping him around? Is it because you are afraid that the crew is going to go against you, or is it some other agenda? I don't really know as to why he tried to keep him alive. David, maybe you can shed some light on that subject as to why is Jod still alive? Go ahead with that.
My guess is that Brutus still needs Jod alive because this was Jod's crew before Brutus took over. And I think Brutus wanted to show that if Jod lied, he will show the crew who is the real leader that they should follow. So it's like Pirates of the Caribbean as well, because all they care about is the riches, not just adventures. They want a captain that can lead them to the riches. Unfortunately, Jod in the beginning of the series, some misfortunes and some dead ends, but they thought that Brutus would be ruthless, will get them what they needed for, but it turns out it's not. And now that Brutus is seeing what Jod is seeing is the truth, he's afraid that the whole crew would turn their back on him. That way to show the crew that, all right, we got what we needed, let's kill him now. And just show who's boss.
Yeah, and then I thought there was this cool scene where one of the test pilots was flying into the atmosphere, and basically he's the sacrificial lamb. Then we find out that they were able to capture the Onyx Cinder, and they're able to scout the ship to see what's going on. Jod, of course, knows that the kids are still in there at this point, but the kids were smart to capture Brutus with a claw, like those you see in amusement parks. As I said in the spoiler-free part, there were some shocking deaths, and Jod just basically shoots him dead. And reminds me a little bit of Han Solo shooting Greedo. They're all both bad characters anyway. So do you feel bad for Brutus getting killed? No, because there's no point of him being there at this point in time, because Jod is the one, like you said, is going to be leading them to riches. And of course, what happens is that SM-33 comes back and basically is still under the command of Jod. This is where I think it lost me, because I had to rewind this and then go back. Fern then said something about how there was a code and that the ship was for kids only, and that Jod cannot be captain of 2 ships. So she was able to find this loophole, smartly find it, and so SM-33 was able to incapacitate Jod for a little bit, and then they were able to escape towards Ad-An here. So this is beautiful here. Of all the scenes, they spent a lot of money on this part where they're flying through the defense mechanisms and the maelstrom. It's like the whole trope of the evil part or the very menacing parts before they get to a point where they see peace and quiet and wonderful feature of Ad-An, and you can see how the kids are just in awe of what has happened. They think that they're home. They're able to get home. But on the flip side, they found out that Jod became a stowaway and they got captured. David, what do you think of this twist that happened with Jod coming back into the scene with them getting captured and this very menacing scene here of him threatening them with a lightsaber?
I gotta give the writers credit here. I'm not sure it's pretty intentional to show the origins of John Nutterwood. That's revealed actually in this episode of why he's a Force user and why he's not a Jedi. It turns out that he was a survivor of Order 66. The reason why they don't have to show this flashback, because he showed an Easter egg, which is this scene here, where he showed a lightsaber in front of the kids, which is the same scene where Anakin Skywalker came into the room where the youngins are, and I think now John Nutterwood might have some PTSD or something. That maybe he did saw Anakin Skywalker there, even though Jude Law is 52 years old. He's probably portrayed someone that's a little younger, because it's from the Revenge of the Sith to Skeleton Crew, it's about 34 years. So that makes sense, though. When he should be at least 7 or 8, so he's about maybe 41, maybe. So it makes sense. So that was one reveal. Now in this one here, he was showing that how annoyed he was because he didn't have a good childhood himself. So he reflect how Anakin Skywalker was to the younglings at his time. Because right now, it's also revealed that John Underwood was a Jedi youngling, but he must have lost his way because of what happened. He tried to survive. That's what he says many times in the show. The supervisor made an announcement that the public emissary is arriving, which obviously John Underwood is posing as one, and somehow getting access to the vaults before he met the supervisor, which is where he came to this scene here.
Yeah.
Where he finds the vaults and the mint of the old Republic credits, for which he's ecstatic. We have the kids, they're home, but it feels like not the kind of homecoming they're hoping for.
Exactly. And he had been in prison, and all the suffering that he has gone through, he finally has achieved his goal. And you can tell the joy that he comes from having this. And we also see the joy of the parents and the kids here, which is great, but then it's undercut by the fact that John has a lightsaber, threatening them with a lightsaber, and then that's cut to black. So it was getting good, and then they cut it to black, and I was like, oh crap, I knew this was gonna happen. But I do want to ask one final question before we wrap up, David, is who do you think is the supervisor? Do you think that the supervisor is going to be someone that we already know from the Star Wars universe, or is it going to be someone that is going to make like a surprise cameo?
I want to know is questions like, why the supervisor doesn't say anything? Why the supervisor shelter everyone out in the outside world, like the Truman Show, for example, but only that person knows what happened this whole time. So what's so great with the supervisor? Because he met Fern's mom, who's the undersecretary, which is second in command under the supervisor, and she doesn't know what happened in the outside world. So it makes you wonder, what is the purpose of that planet, and why is the planet so isolated that they don't know that the old Republic is gone, that the new Republic is born since the Empire is struck down by Luke Skywalker.
I know creatively why they did it, because they want to have some type of separation from the main story, but it'll be nice for them to fill in the gaps for the audience to figure out as to why the planet is what it is. There were several planets that was part of this whole network, and they were all available except for this one. Most probably, I would say, is that they were the ones that held all the wealth of all the other planets that were around them. That's the only thing that makes the most sense, and that's why people that have been smuggled out or whatever, they're able to say through legend, oh, there's this big wealth area. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to figure out who actually is the supervisor, because that's the puppet master for all this that's been going on, just like in any other Star Wars property that we've seen so far. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this episode?
Nope.
Okay, so that's what we think about Star Wars Skeleton Crew Episode 7. Tell us what you think about this episode by commenting down below. Like, share, subscribe for more content like this. And we will see you next video. All right. Take care, everybody.